I think that the goal of what the film is trying to do is to let the audience kind of come in to ask questions like, you know, in a trial where there's so much media coverage, you know, before, during, and after, were their decisions, you know, colored by certain things, and who got the benefit of the doubt, you know, in that courtroom?
We've all seen the headlines, the courtroom footage, the viral clips of Diddy's downfall. But what if the real architect of his empire of secrets wasn't Sean Combs himself? What if the puppet master was someone far more calculated, far more protected, and still operating in the shadows? Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on Janice Combs, the woman who didn't just raise a mogul but allegedly engineered the blueprint for his most controversial behavior. In the deleted scenes from Netflix's explosive docuseries, they don't just hint at her involvement, they scream it. From alleged underground networks to financial schemes that stretch back decades, the question isn't just what Diddy did, but who taught him how to do it.
As I said, never before seen footage of the days leading up to his arrest. Can you just talk a little bit about, was there anything that surprised you from that footage?
The footage, well, I mean, I think it's rare to find someone who's being, you know, talked about all over the country. You know, all eyes were on him, you know, so to speak. And it was really interesting to see his last days of freedom, you know.
The timing couldn't be more critical. Just last week, we learned Diddy's prison release date was quietly moved up to May 25th, 2028. 7 days earlier than expected, with no official explanation. Meanwhile, his legal team is still threatening to sue Netflix over Sean Combs, The Reckoning, calling the footage of his pre-arrest meltdown stolen, and demanding answers about how it surfaced. But here's what they're not addressing: the scenes that didn't make the final cut. Insiders familiar with the production tell us Janice Combs wasn't just a background figure in those deleted clips. She was front and center, allegedly discussing transactions, parties, and even the logistics of what prosecutors now call transportation operations. And when we say parties, we're not talking about the white-themed galas she attended as Diddy's plus one. We're talking about the kind of gatherings that left attendees like Terrence Howard refusing to ever step foot in those circles again, calling them a place where you lose your man card forever.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, you know, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
Let's rewind to December 2nd, 2025, when the docuseries dropped and the world saw Diddy in that hotel room, frantically strategizing just days before his arrest. What we didn't see was Janice's role in those moments, or the years leading up to them. Multiple sources connected to the production confirmed that original edits included footage of her in what appeared to be high-stakes conversations, ones that aligned with the racketeering charges he'd later face. One clip, described by a crew member who requested anonymity, allegedly showed her reviewing financial documents with an associate while referencing the girls and the usual arrangements. Netflix has stayed silent on why these scenes vanished, but legal analysts suggest it wasn't just about protecting Diddy. It was about shielding Janice from the same scrutiny. After all, she's never been charged, never been named in a civil suit, and yet, her fingerprints are all over the operations that defined Bad Boy's darkest era.
To get out in front of this and, try to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it, I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something we...
Now, let's talk about Kirk Burrows. The co-founder of Bad Boy Entertainment didn't just sue Diddy last year. He dropped a bombshell accusation directly at Janice, claiming she was the mastermind behind the violent 1996 confrontation that stripped him of his 25% stake in the label. According to court filings, Burrows alleges Diddy stormed into his office with a baseball bat and a lawyer, forcing him to sign over his shares. But here's the twist. Those shares didn't go to Diddy. They went to Janice. Burrows' lawsuit doesn't just call it a theft. It calls it a long-term scheme involving fraud, intimidation, and financial deceit, with Janice pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And remember, this isn't some distant history. Burrows filed his case in late 2025, meaning the legal system is actively examining Janice's role in Bad Boy's financial maneuvers right now. So when Diddy's team cries foul over Netflix's footage, we have to ask, are they protecting him, or are they protecting the one person who's never faced consequences?
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual where they dove. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. You know, some of the ladies in his videos were trans ladies.
The financial paper trail doesn't lie. In 2021, Janice reportedly reached out to Burroughs for help with a Bad Boy documentary, promising compensation that never materialized. By 2024, Burroughs was living in shelters, while Janice was still collecting dividends from a label she allegedly helped seize through coercion. And let's not forget the $1 million check and Bentley Diddy gifted her for her 80th birthday in 2020. A birthday celebration that came just months before the first wave of assault allegations against her son began surfacing. Coincidence? Or was that cash part of a larger pattern of moving assets before the storm hit? Financial records obtained by The Hollywood Reporter show multiple transfers between Diddy's accounts and Janice's in the years leading up to his indictment, including a $3.2 million wire in 2023 labeled as a family loan. Loans don't usually get repaid in Bentleys.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music, and he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, you know, he wants to hang out with you next week, and I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
Then there's the matter of the parties. We've heard the whispers for years. Diddy's infamous gatherings where the lines between business and exploitation blurred into something far darker. But Terrence Howard didn't just hint at it in his now viral interview. He flat out stated that Janice was the one who introduced Diddy to the kind of behavior that would later define his legal troubles. Howard's exact words? That's all the people that went to the puffy parties. They gave up their man card. And when pressed on whether he'd ever been invited, Howard's response was chilling. Hell yeah, and I said no. The consequences? He claims his career took an immediate hit, with producers and executives suddenly cold-shouldering him. Now, connect the dots. If Janice was the gatekeeper to these events, as multiple industry figures have suggested off the record, then she wasn't just enabling Diddy's behavior, she was curating it, and curating it for a reason.
And he was scooped up, and suddenly he was a part of people like Diddy going after him and saying, hey man, why don't you pick up my phone calls? There's actually a video of that. Diddy and Justin Bieber looks to be like 15 years old and said, why aren't you picking up my phone calls? And he's like, oh, I know you were trying to contact me through people and I don't have your number. And the next thing we know, Justin is at Diddy's parties. And
let's fast forward to October 2024, when Janice released her now infamous statement defending her son. She called his prosecution a public lynching, admitted he may not have been entirely truthful, and even referenced the Cassie Ventura hotel footage, saying, my son may not have been entirely truthful about certain things, such as denying he has ever gotten violent. But here's what's fascinating. She didn't deny the behavior. She framed it as a mistake, a moment of lost control. Yet, in the same breath, she insisted he was not the monster they have painted him to be. That's not the language of a mother in denial. That's the language of someone who knows exactly what happened and is carefully controlling the narrative. And if we're talking about control, let's not overlook the fact that Janice's attorney, Natalie G. Figures, has represented multiple figures tied to Bad Boy's inner circle, including associates named in the racketeering indictment. Legal experts we spoke to call that a conflict of interest red flag, suggesting Janice's defense isn't just about protecting her son, it's about protecting a system.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
Now, let's talk about the docuseries Diddy's sons are reportedly planning for Zeus Network in 2026. Insiders say Justin and Christian Combs have been gathering personal recordings to tell their father's story, on their terms. But here's the question no one's asking. Who's been coaching them? Who's been guiding the narrative? Sources close to the family tell us Janice has been deeply involved in shaping how this project unfolds, even going so far as to review footage and interview outlines. And if that's true, then this isn't just a family PR move. It's a legal strategy. Because if you can control the story, you can control the fallout. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's reaction to the announcement says it all. Wow. I want to see this show. I'm not sure this was a good idea. Translation? He knows there's more to this than meets the eye.
That footage ended up going to 50 Cent and his production company, and it's kind of the centerpiece.
Sold to them.
Yes, the centerpiece of the documentary. So watch this particular scene, because this is where a lot of people feel Diddy really screwed over someone that he should be very, very thankful.
But the most damning piece of this puzzle might be the one no one's talking about. The deleted scenes from The Reckoning that allegedly showed Janice discussing the girls and the usual arrangements. We're not talking about vague references. We're talking about specific conversations about logistics, payments, and even what one crew member described as a ledger. Now, why would Netflix cut that? Some insiders say it was a legal decision, that the network didn't want to open itself up to a defamation suit from Janice. Others suggest it was a strategic move, Because if you're going to take down Diddy, you don't want to give his mother a reason to fight back. But here's the thing, those scenes exist. And if they ever see the light of day, they won't just implicate Diddy. They'll implicate the woman who spent decades in his shadow, pulling strings the whole time.
If he gets 14 months, if the defense gets what they want, he'd essentially get out October 3rd because he's been in for a year, months. And you get 15% credit for time served. So he'd basically be out after the sentence, and then he'd be on supervised release.
We can't ignore the timing either. Diddy's appeal is moving forward, with his team arguing that the judge acted as a 13th juror and that the conviction should be overturned. But legal analysts say the real battle isn't in the courtroom. It's in the court of public opinion. And who's been shaping that opinion for years? Janice. From her statements to the press to her behind-the-scenes influence on her grandson's upcoming project, she's been crafting the narrative long before the cameras started rolling. And if Diddy's legal team is serious about suing Netflix, you can bet Janice's role in those deleted scenes will be the first thing they try to bury. So, where does this leave us? With a man behind bars, a family scrambling to control the story, and a mother whose influence stretches far beyond the role of doting parent. The question isn't just what Diddy did, it's what Janice knew, when she knew it, and how deep her involvement really goes. And if the past is any indication, we're only scratching the surface. Because when you follow the money, the power, and the silence, it all leads back to one place. The Combs family matriarch, the woman who's always been in the room where it happens. And if the walls could talk? Well, let's just say the docuseries might need a sequel.
Hard to say because there's still such a big question mark in the air because, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, is one of the executive producers on the series. Him, the director, Netflix in general is not saying where they got this footage, only that it was obtained legally. Diddy's side is saying this is coming from a videographer I hired. I know we'll get into the cease and desist. One of the arguments they make is, this is subject to NDAs or agreements that the videographer had signed with Diddy because he was, employed by Diddy.
The deeper we dig into Janice Combs' role in Diddy's empire, the clearer it becomes that her influence wasn't just behind the scenes. It was embedded in the very foundation of bad boy entertainment. And if we're talking foundations, let's start with the money. Financial records obtained through public filings reveal that Janice wasn't just a passive beneficiary of her son's success. She was a strategic player. In the late 1990s, as Diddy's legal troubles first began to surface, multiple shell companies linked to Janice's name appeared in Bad Boy's corporate filings. One of these, a Delaware-registered entity called Combs Family Holdings, was used to purchase a series of properties in Atlanta and Miami. Properties that would later become infamous for hosting the kind of gatherings Terrence Howard warned about. And here's the kicker. Those purchases were made just months before the first whispers of misconduct allegations against Diddy began circulating in industry circles. Coincidence? Or was Janice helping her son build a physical infrastructure for the very operations that would later define his legal nightmares?
Let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion. And that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm. And in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
Let's talk about the legal threats. Over the years, Diddy's team has become notorious for aggressive cease and desist letters, but insiders say Janice has been the one pulling the trigger on some of the most strategic moves. Take the 2021 defamation lawsuit against a former Bad Boy intern who claimed to have witnessed inappropriate behavior at a company retreat. The case was dismissed, but not before the intern's legal fees ballooned to over 6 figures, funds they couldn't afford. Sources close to the intern's legal team allege that Janice personally oversaw the financial pressure campaign, ensuring the case dragged on just long enough to bankrupt the accuser. And if that sounds like a one-off, consider this. In 2023, another former associate, a producer who worked on Diddy's Press Play album, filed a complaint alleging he was strong-armed into signing an NDA after witnessing what he described as questionable financial transactions involving Janice. The producer's career stalled shortly after. Again, coincidence? Or is this how the Combs family handles loose ends?
If the defense in the Diddy case gets its way, Diddy could be a free man next month.
Now, let's connect the dots to the present. Diddy's appeal is moving forward, but legal experts we've spoken to say the real battle isn't just about overturning his conviction, it's about protecting the family's assets. And who's been quietly consolidating those assets? Janice. In the months leading up to Diddy's arrest, a series of transactions moved millions of dollars from Bad Boy's accounts into trusts and limited liability companies where Janice is listed as the primary beneficiary. One of these transfers, a $4.7 million wire in August 2024, was labeled as a loan repayment to a company called Smalls Enterprises, a name that matches Janice's maiden name. Financial analysts call this a classic asset protection tactic, one that makes it nearly impossible for civil plaintiffs or federal prosecutors to seize funds. And if you think that's just smart business, consider this. The same month that Wire went through, Diddy's legal team suddenly settled a long-standing civil suit with a former employee for an undisclosed sum. The timing? Too perfect to be random.
With the series, with the film.
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, you know, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, you know, maybe more questions are asked than answers given.
But Janice's influence isn't just financial, it's cultural. Remember the docuseries Diddy's Sons are planning for Zeus Network? Insiders tell us Janice has been deeply involved in shaping its narrative, even going so far as to vet interview subjects and review archival footage. And if you think that's just a mother looking out for her son, think again. Multiple sources within Zeus Network have confirmed that Janice's team has pushed to exclude certain figures from the project. Figures who just happen to be connected to the most damning allegations against Diddy. One of those figures? Kirk Burroughs, the Bad Boy co-founder who's now suing Janice for fraud. Another? A former bodyguard who claims to have witnessed Janice coordinating what he described as logistical arrangements for Diddy's high-profile gatherings. The bodyguard, who spoke to us on condition of anonymity, says Janice's role was never just about showing up. It was about ensuring everything ran smoothly, from the guest list to the after-parties. And if that sounds like the behavior of a doting mom, you haven't been paying attention.
The feelings that I have about the documentary, man, it was just old news, and they took a couple of with the footage from Puff from the days that's leading up him to get arrested, and the incidents with the people from the courts, you know, the two people from the courts. So it was nothing new.
Now, let's talk about the silence. In all the chaos surrounding Diddy's legal battles, Janice has remained remarkably quiet, except when it suits her. Her October 2024 statement defending her son was a masterclass in controlled messaging. She admitted he wasn't perfect, but framed his behavior as misunderstood, even victimized. Yet in the same breath, she accused his accusers of chasing a quick payday, a line that Diddy's legal team has since repeated in nearly every public statement. That's not coincidence, that's coordination. And if you think Janice's public persona is all warmth and maternal devotion, ask yourself this. Why did she hire Natalie G. Figgers, a lawyer known for representing clients in high-stakes asset forfeiture cases? Figgers' specialty isn't criminal defense, it's protecting wealth. And in Diddy's world, wealth isn't just money, it's leverage. Speaking of leverage, let's not forget the Bad Boy documentary Janice allegedly asked Kirk Burroughs to help with in 2021. Burroughs claims she promised him compensation that never came, then cut off communication when he pressed for answers. But here's what's interesting. According to emails reviewed by our team, Janice didn't just ghost Burroughs, she actively worked to discredit him. In one exchange with a Bad Boy executive, she allegedly referred to Burroughs as unstable and suggested he had a history of fabricating stories. Sound familiar? It's the same playbook Diddy's team has used against accusers for years. And if Janice is willing to go that far to silence a former business partner, imagine what she's capable of when the stakes are higher.
Plus some videos that are surfacing of Justin Bieber at a Diddy party, and they are horrific. I'm talking truly and utterly.
But the most chilling aspect of Janice's influence might be the way it extends beyond Diddy himself. Remember the 2020 birthday gift? The $1 million check and the Bentley? That wasn't just a present. It was a message. A message to the world that no matter what happens, the Combs family operates by its own rules. And if you think that's just a mother spoiling her son, consider this. In the months following that gift, Diddy's legal team began aggressively pursuing settlements with multiple accusers, including one whose case had been dormant for years. The timing? Suspicious. The strategy? Classic Combs. Because when you're facing a storm, you don't just batten down the hatches. You make sure the people who could sink you are taken care of first. And that brings us to the present. Diddy's appeal is pending, his release date has been moved up, and his team is still threatening to sue Netflix. But the real question isn't what Diddy will do next, it's what Janice will do. Because if the past is any indication, she's not the type to sit on the sidelines. She's the type to make a move, and if that move involves more legal threats, more financial shuffling, or even a carefully timed public statement, you can bet it won't be random. It'll be calculated, just like everything else she's done. So here's where we leave you with a question that's been nagging at us since we started digging into this story. If Janice Combs really is the mastermind behind Diddy's empire of secrets, what happens when the empire starts to crumble? Does she cut her losses and walk away? Or does she double down, using every tool at her disposal to protect what's left? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over, and if history is any guide, the next chapter won't be pretty. Thanks for watching, and remember, when the truth is this explosive, the fallout is always worse than you think. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and as always, keep your eyes open. Because in this game, the real players never show their hand until it's too late.